Join Corey Cove on Wednesday, December 18th at Shakopee Bowl in Shakopee from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 for Coors Light Hockey Night. Watch Minnesota play Florida and play trivia for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the hockey game on January 9th. Get the full details now at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, sure.
Well, from the podcast, Ben Lieber, at one point of the Alec Lewis Show podcast, and at Alec_Lewis, please follow, as 9 to Noon does, and you can learn more about the podcast Twitter spot, and the whole thing. But during the course of the podcast, Ben Lieber said of the fourth quarter of the Atlanta Falcons game, that Minnesota Vikings team he saw play in the fourth quarter of the Atlanta game is a championship quality team. That's what was said on the Alec Lewis podcast. Do you see it that way?
More than I ever have, yeah. I mean, that game to me, I mean, I've wanted to see this defense ever since, the Lions and the Rams stretch where they lost those 2 games and obviously didn't have Blake Cashman. I've wanted to see this defense against better offenses kind of down the stretch to see, will they give up explosive plays? Can they hold up? I wanted to see if Sam Darnold could continue his string of no turnovers. I wanted to see if Jordan Addison would come alive the way everybody internally thought he would. Mm-hmm. And we've seen all of that. And when you ask, do I see it that way in terms of whether they could be a championship caliber team? So much of it is tied to my belief that Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores will not only have the guys ready to play, but in game, when you have to make adjustments on the fly, they have proven that they are able to do that at a really, really high clip. And that to me is important when you have these playoff one-game sample size where you have to be as on as possible in those games and as effective as possible in those games. So, the fourth quarter at US Bank Stadium with just the environment there and really maybe everything emanated from Justin Jefferson's positivity and his attitude and his aura. It felt like that was the first time he really, you could really see it with him. Mm-hmm. And I think that rubbed off on me. So, yeah.
Right.
Talk to me about Jalen Redmond, who I was not aware was a person until very recently. Who is he? What do we know about him? Why is he getting more playing time? Is he going to replace Jerry Tillery? Where are we with Jalen Redmond, who made himself known last week?
Yeah, so I forgot to look at this, too, and I know you look at the snap counts hard. Are Tillery's snaps down the last couple? Redmond's have gone up to the high 30s. Yeah. Somebody has to come back. Is it Tillery?
Yes, it's been Tillery. Yeah, that's been, the Viking staff has been very impressed with Jalen Redmond. The backstory is this. This guy played at Oklahoma. He had some medical situations there. He had a blood clot situation that he had to fight through. And then he went undrafted in 2022. The Panthers gave him a shot, but they cut him before he really got to prove it. Yep. So he decided to keep playing in the UFL for the Arlington Renegades. I got to tell you, I don't even know what the Arlington Renegades are. But Bob Stoops, the longtime Oklahoma coach, was the Renegades coach, and he was familiar with Jalen Redmond from the Oklahoma days. Right. So Jalen Redmond gets an opportunity for the Arlington Renegades, whatever the heck that is, and he performed really well. And Ryan Grigson, who's a Vikings executive, he's like the most optimistic scout there is. And so he's scouring the film in the Vikings' third floor TCO Performance Center office.
He's scouring UFL film.
Yeah, this is sicko behavior, but this is why you get paid the big bucks. And he sees this guy, Jalen Redmond. He's like, he would really fit for our system. So he walks into Brian Flores' office this summer, and he's like, Brian, take a look at this guy, Jalen Redmond. Brian Flores is sitting behind his desk, and they've got the roster already pretty set. And Brian Flores is like, really, man? Are we doing this? We're really going to do this?
Yeah.
Grigson says, watch the tape. Brian Flores watches the tape.
Wow.
And then he thinks, all right, I guess we're really doing this. Because what he saw in Jalen Redmond was what Brian Grigson saw in that Jalen Redmond fit perfectly for this front. He was athletic enough to play the multiple positions that they have to play. And he could generate a pass rush at a level that some of the guys the Vikings already have could not. And in training camp, Jalen Redmond was impressive. I remember he got thrown out of a practice one time because he got in a fight. And I kind of like that juice. I was like, good. The guy's sparking it. And the team was very much on. They believed in him. He's a young guy. He does everything the right way. He's performed, and so they've given him more snaps. And it is like I said earlier this week. Ivan Pace undrafted. Jalen Redmond out of nowhere. Bo Richter undrafted. Gabe Murphy's playing. He's undrafted. They keep doing this, and to me, it is emblematic of the front office knowing what Brian Flores wants, and Brian Flores being willing to give anybody an opportunity if they have the skills to play in this defense.
Right.
All right, so while we're talking about increased snap counts, that's Jalen Redmond. Dallas Turner the last 2 weeks, 25 and 26 snaps for him. That's a big uptick. Are we starting to see more confidence from Brian Flores about using Dallas Turner? And let me tell you where he has played the last 2 weeks. He has played D tackle, left end, right end, left outside linebacker, right outside linebacker, and a snap at middle linebacker.
Damn.
That's Dallas Turner right there.
It feels from afar, and you're out there more than me. So that Jalen Redmond's team you just shared, hey, that was really good.
Wasn't that good?
That was good. I mean, it's Grigson to Flores, and what are we doing here? I mean, you got to write about that if you haven't. But secondly, pace down last two, Turner's numbers up. Mm-hmm. And in Blake Cashman's first game down, or one of his first games, the Lions game, I think it was the first one. Well, at the beginning of the game, there's Dallas Turner in the Blake Cashman spot inside for like 2 plays. Because from what I understand, it took Ben Johnson 30 seconds to figure out, okay, well then I guess their next offensive time through, they changed everything. And they're like, we're changing everything. You're not going to do this, okay? And we're changing things, and you're going to take him out of the game. And they did. So it's the chess match bit that you know a lot about. But Turner's numbers, do you think they're up because Ivan is down?
That might be part of it. I think some of it might also be Grenard and Van Ginkel have played a heck of a lot of snaps. Right. And so down the stretch here, to give those guys a little bit of a breather and to have Dallas Turner get some development time, that makes sense. I think it's also Patrick Jones missed last game, so that probably contributed to some of Dallas Turner's snaps. Right. And then this past week, and I'm sure you saw this earlier this week, Brian Flores said that he had some pretty good conversations with Dallas Turner one-on-one last week. I talked to, I guess I'll just say, I talked to Dallas Turner's dad, and it sounded like that stuff went really, really well.
How was Fort Worth?
Yeah, Delon Turner. He played
and his cousin Tyler.
Professional basketball. But
really?
His dad played professional basketball.
I did not remember
his dad's also like a venture capital, very fascinating family. Right. Anyway, Dallas Turner, I do think the increase is I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think it will probably continue. But the reality is, and you guys know this because you watch just as much as I do, it's hard to take Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel off the field right now. Every time a team throws a screen pass, Andrew Van Ginkel looks like he's going to take it the other way. Right. And then Jonathan Grenard has been maybe the most underrated defender in the NFL this entire year. And so for Dallas, it's just tough because the role he fits best probably as an edge rusher. I think him playing those positions show his versatility. And when he's played, you've seen the athleticism. I mean, this guy's tracked guys down from the backside. He's incredibly athletic. It's a process. He's young. I really don't have any concern about his long-term future.
You wrote a long article in The Athletic about the offseason options the Vikings have with Sam Darnold. You had some really good data in there. Over the cap estimates that Darnold will be paid $35 million annually in his deal. Does that feel about right to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield signed like a 3-year, $100 million deal with about $50 million guaranteed. Derek Carr's deal a couple years ago was, 4 years, $160 for $100 guaranteed. NFL contracts, just as an aside, it's such the numbers are such a mess. It's not like baseball where Juan Soto signs for $760 million and he literally gets $760
every dollar of it, no matter what.
Football, it's like 4 for $160, but actually 60. And so there's a lot of I'd say Sam Darnold's value for sure is probably going to be, if he continues the way it's continued, it's probably going to end up around 35, around $40 million. and it becomes a very interesting question that takes you down a lot of different roads. It takes you down the J.J. McCarthy development path. It takes you down team building with, can you pay a quarterback the middle class amount and still build a winning roster? Like we could hash this out and probably will for months on end, and it's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, February, March, it's going to be a lot of conversation around this.
Can Daniel Jones become the next Sam Darnold? Okay, in this family, in this covenant, or should it be framed up? Daniel Jones will become the next reclamation project at quarterback. These guys fix, and somebody with whom they may succeed. It just may be like same fishbowl. They're under different rocks. Do you look at it that way?
What I would say is, for you or for the fans listening to this, for anybody to have confidence that that type of player like a Daniel Jones would become the next Sam Darnold, like I think you should have the confidence with what the staff has proved.
Right.
But to just bank on that happening, to me, almost it's not giving Sam Darnold enough credit for just what he's done.
Right.
Like, again, I would have the optimism that Kevin O'Connell would be able to maximize anybody that has that position. We've seen it with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs. Like, that has been proven. But I also think some of the throws that Sam Darnold's making in terms of down the field accuracy, in terms of just the willingness to even try some of these throws and the arm talent to even do it.
Jones has all that.
No,
he doesn't.
Now, I need to watch more film to hold myself to the standard of being very convicted in what I say here. But I think Daniel Jones is more like maybe mobile guy, just not as much of that level of arm talent. And I've talked to a couple scouts to try to get a feel for it, but I need to watch more film to be able to fully feel comfortable in my evaluation.
The Darnold arm talent part, I mean, it's like we can be told he had a good arm. We can see it at organized team activities or training camp. Until you see it in a game where it's going 100 miles per hour and he's on the left hash marks and he throws to the right sideline, which has to be his favorite throw.
that little, like, it's like a pitching wedge, like up and over from like 120 out.
In the Arizona game, you tweeted a picture of it, or the video, the linebacker that it just barely went over, and you're like, really? Or like, what? Or something like that. And that's a hard throw, and it requires a strong arm, confidence, accuracy, and the whole thing, man. So you guys are right about his arm.
And I'll say the thing with Sam Darnold the last 3 games that is more impressive to me than the arm is the conviction with what he's seeing. Like, if his eyes are looking right, it feels like he's really seeing it. And then if he scans back left, it feels like he's not taking like extra seconds or milliseconds to make the decision. It feels like he's playing very, very comfortable and confident and relaxed, which is a little different to me than how it felt earlier in the year. When you pair that with like the cognitive stuff with what he's doing with his arm, that's where you wade into the, man, it's hard to just think about just giving this guy up, even though, as I say that, I know the dynamics of what paying him $40 million would mean in terms of roster building. Like, here's what I'd say, and I told Charch this before we got on the radio. Let's say you're going to either pay Sam Darnold $40 million, or you're going to use that $40 million for Daniel Jones and then maybe like a Trey Smith right guard and DJ Reed cornerback. Which package would you rather take? And again, we could hash this out. You and I could. Everybody, fans listening, they're screaming at their radio with their opinion. I mean, these are the conversations that realistically happen inside the building and are right now. That's why I think anybody right now who's like, they should do this, bring him back, or they should let him go, and they're going to do this. I know they are. No. Nobody knows.
I agree.
Nobody knows.
I agree.
It's not known inside that building.
Yep. And I think it's a dirty talker, as I said early in the week. It's dirty because it muddies the 11-2. Well, it takes the attention away from so many good things that are happening right now.
Well, Greenway said it best, but like with how much fun this is right now in the present, it's almost like a messed up thing that our psychology just automatically already goes to the future. Can we not just enjoy how much fun this has been and how much fun it is on a week in, week out basis? Like, I can't wait to be in that building Monday night and to feel that energy when Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson run out together with the white uniform. Like, I mean, it'll be.
That's going to be a thing?
I don't know, but
That's a wonderful idea.
Why wouldn't they do it? I mean, Jeff Anderson, get on it. I don't know why you wouldn't do it.
Jalen Naylor may be like, what about me? I'm just playing.
No comment.
Right.
Here's something that we can enjoy in the present. You mentioned Jonathan Grenard, nationally, I think, really under-recognized. He is the only player that is top 10 in ESPN's run, stop, win rate and pass rush win rate. Only player in the NFL. Unbelievable.
He's an example of the selflessness of this defense and all these guys. Like there are a lot of players on this defense who, if they hunted more splash plays, it might be better for them for future contracts or for anything. But they are all so bought into the classic cliche of do your job, which just means like do your one assignment, and all of that together will lead to one of the best defenses in the NFL. That's what's happened.
The term "do your job." Okay, it's been around forever. Bill Belichick said it more than anybody. Do your job. And now he's coaching. He's going to coach the North Carolina Tar Heels.
I heard.
Well, you're
Chapel Bill,
right? Or Chapel. Oh, I like that. Chapel Bill.
I hadn't
That's
heard
sweet.
That's good.
I hadn't either.
Stole it from Schefter.
Well, I wonder. I wonder with these press conferences coming up with like these North Carolina journalism students and stuff like that. I mean, I'm predicting that it's going to be a different version of Bill Belichick. It's going to be a softer version to the media. I don't see him getting frustrated with a question and saying on to the Hokies. Onto the Hokies and just shutting the guy out.
It'd be like, "Hi, I'm Jake from the Daily's Tar Heel, Bill. What are you thinking about your edge?" And he's like, "Well, I think we're going to do this."
Onto the Hokies. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I will say, like, just as a, I'm a football fan. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing.
Me too.
And I can't wait to see what the staff looks like and Matt Patricia with the Tar Heels hat. I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I don't know how it'll work.
Do we really think Bill Belichick is going to sit down at a kitchen table in front of a bowl of spaghetti in Asheville, North Carolina, and really nitpick NIL
and
with some 19-year-old looking for an extra grand?
Yeah.
And how is the spaghetti in Asheville, North Carolina?
I don't know. You got to go to Raleigh to get the best pasta. But it's whether it's the NIL, the transfer portal. Mike Lombardi, who's been on 9 to Noon a million times. I've known him forever. He's going to be the GM.
Right.
So they got a GM up in here.
It goes from Veasan to general manager of the North Carolina football program.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so if he ever does an interview and says it's going to be a high-scoring game,
I want to listen.
We're rolling 90 minutes out and jumping all in on the over. But with that said, it's fascinating, and I guess we have to wait to see how it develops. His press conferences are going to be great. I don't know what the NIL situation is in Chapel Hill. It ain't USC. It's not wherever Clemson plays, Greenville or whatever, Gainesville, all the prominent cities, the Tuscaloosa. But they have to increase that, right?
Yeah, I believe that was part of. I mean, you guys followed the reporting probably like I did. It sounded like for Bill to take that job, they had to meet him at a lot of his wants, whether it was money for the amount of staff, and the level of staff, money for the NIL.
My son Steven gets a 15-year guaranteed contract to replace me.
You know that's coming.
Right.
What I saw online or go by my Twitter feed was that the NIL commitment went from no less than $1 million to no less than $10 million for Belichick. They 10x'd it for him.
10 ain't enough.
It might not be enough.
10 ain't enough.
It might be enough. I don't know.
Because these kids will be like, Chapel Bill who? I got 1.5 million more I'm taking over here, and they will leave, and Bill will be like, cool, I'll win without you.
You saw the number one basketball recruit in the country just committed to BYU, and I think the NIL was like 5 to 7 million. Just for him.
Yeah.
So you got to, I mean, it's.
I learned a lot about that.
How does BYU have that kind of money?
It's interesting.
In their basketball
I learned
program?
a lot about that yesterday at Box in the Box when we weren't talking about Jimmy Snuggerud, who is a big talker for you.
I went to Minnesota hockey game last week.
What?
Yeah. Michigan.
6-0 or 2-0?
The cheerleaders were on figure skates at the college. I was like, what is going on?
That's how it works.
You're acting like Ice Capade was just invented within the last 5 years.
It was like, I got to tell you, I had the best popcorn I've ever had. It was unbelievable.
That's the key takeaway from Alec's first ever college
That's beautiful.
hockey game was girls can skate and also The popcorn was
Yeah.
delicious.
Like, no, but like I was like sitting there, and I mean, people are waving white towels.
Yes.
It was great. No,
You're-
I mean, look, I like the hockey. They were getting the puck in and out of the zones really well.
It's not hard on skates to look at the maize and blue fan base and say, UGLY, you ain't got no alibi. That's not that hard. Okay?
It is. If you put me on skates,
Okay, now 3-2.
my glasses would be like.
BYU. So I believe the owner of the Utah Jazz and the Utah
Hockey team?
what I think is going to be the Yeti hockey
Yeah,
team.
we're hoping for Yeti.
It's Ryan Smith. It's Ryan or Brian Smith, one of the two, I believe. Ryan. Let's go with Ryan. He owns both. Okay. Well, he also has become, or was, but now people know about him, the number one donor to Brigham Young University. So he's literally
All right.
saying, I'm going to all these games.
Yeah.
What do you need? Well, he requires 5. Go get him. And they got him. So that's what's happening.
Their head coach too, BYU's head coach, is new, and he was an NBA assistant for a long time.
Yeah.
I think he was an assistant with the Suns. So
Didn't their previous coach go to Kentucky?
yeah, Pope. But the new guy, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he was in the NBA with the Suns, I think last year or 2 years ago. So there are probably a lot of grassroots ties from that time.
So this Utah hockey thing is kind of funny. They had to quickly move from Arizona to Utah, and they wanted to be, reportedly, they wanted to be the Yetis, but people had all squatted on all the good names.
Is it
So all-
Yetis or Yeti? I think it's like
Yeti,
Stanford
Yeti.
Cardinal.
Yeah, I think it's
like
too.
years
Yeah,
versus
I think you're
years.
right. Yeti,
Yeah,
singular.
all these guys, they're the Yeti.
So people had squatted on all of like the the trademarks, the URLs, and all this stuff. And so they're all bound up because all the good names people had grabbed already,
Yeah.
and they're trying to find one. So
Yeah.
now we got a hockey team with no team name this year.
Right, but we also have a BYU basketball team, which has not been fresh since Danny Ainge played
Oh,
there.
God.
With a
Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer Fredette, right.
Oh yeah.
They haven't been fresh since Danny Ainge played there. They have a booster who's going to the bluest of the blue chips and saying, what do you need? 5. Got it. Sign now. And they're signing. I mean, I think it's massive.
The NIL stuff is like I got a message from a buddy of mine who works kind of in business the other day. He's like, so
How is Kirk Herbstreit? I haven't talked to him in a while.
no, I knew you were gonna do that. No, it's so
Well,
ridiculous.
your spaghetti bit was terrible. How is the spaghetti in Asheville? What the hell?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how you come up with this stuff.
That's okay.
Anyway, yeah, the NIL stuff is absurd. But for Bill Belichick to get us back on the rails, probably, I felt like for him it totally makes sense because like where else are you going to go where they're just going to be like, yeah, you handled the football program. We don't really know what we're doing down here. That's why it made sense to me.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Mm-hmm.
The NIL thing, it's basically free agency all the time
Every
for
year.
120 Division I schools.
Yep.
And,
And I got to tell you, like, I really wonder how that will filter up. Guys, like, just run from adversity. If they're not playing, then they hit the transfer portal and they go somewhere else. And some of it I understand because if you're playing your market value, you should. But if you just hit the transfer portal because you're just running from adversity, then you get to the NFL where you're definitely going to
it's always adversity all the time.
And then that to me is going to be very interesting. And then the teams I think that are able to scout and identify the players who can respond from tough situations, I think we'll have an advantage in some way.
All right, I know you got to get out of here from
Yeah.
the sneaky piece, but just give me your best 90 seconds on this. Darnold, future, the big talker, Schefter, Orlovsky, social media, 9 to noon, the whole thing. What about the head coach? And I didn't look hard enough last night, but like that info's not super easy to find. Like when O'Connell and Kwesi's deals are up.
It's
2025?
Yeah, at the end of next season. But
All right.
the reality is, Kevin O'Connell, I mean, before anything happens, he should receive an extension.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means before the end of the season. I don't know if that means right now. I know I cover the team objectively, but with the job this guy has done for 3 years,
Right.
with the culture that he's built authentically to himself, with just what he's navigated, it is an absolute no-brainer. And I don't know what the value will look like, but the Wilfs will be paying more than most owners in the NFL are paying to keep this head coach here. And they should.
Right.
I mean, he's proven that time and time again.
But it is something that needs to be thought about, right? Right now.
Yeah, and I thought you made a great point earlier in the week of like, let's make sure the extensions are handed out before these hard decisions are made because it allows for more clear-headed thinking. And that's why I give them even more credit for what they did last year. They were entering a season that had incredible variance with a quarterback that was going to have incredible variance. That was a leap of faith, even though people act like it was this no-brainer, move on from Kirk. I think in some ways I get why people think that, but you were moving on from an accomplished quarterback to a rookie and a quarterback who really hadn't had a ton of success without any guarantee for your future as an executive or a coach. And that was pretty bold, and it's played out at a level that is rewarding of the contract that Kevin O'Connell should get as soon as, I don't know. I don't know if Trace Armstrong, his agent, can get here. I don't know what they can make happen, but to me, it's just a no-brainer at this point.
High fives for everybody. Thank you. Hey, Alec Lewis, he has to go. Round of applause. That was some really good information there from OYA at Alec_Lewis via Twitter. Don't forget about the Alec Lewis podcast. Learn more about that via his Twitter feed. PA and Charch are feasting about an 11-2 Minnesota Vikings squad at Buffalo Wild Wings Roseville. And the second half of the presentation is around the corner on your home for Vikings football, KFAN.
Fan.
Head over to our contest page and enter for your chance to win tickets to see your Minnesota Wild take on the Utah Hockey Club on January 23rd. Thanks to Custom One Exteriors, the official home partner of the Minnesota Wild. That's KFAN.com. Keyword contest to enter.
Favorites, Courtney Cronin, who covers the Chicago Bears for ESPN.com and ESPN Nation. She'll be calling us about 25 minutes from now, and we'll get some Bears intel from one of the very best, beloved CC. That takes place at about 11 o'clock. The Fantasy Feast portion of the equation also is on the horizon. And just to give you a little snippet of what to expect, fantasy football fans, with the Fantasy Football Feast coming up a little later. Let's begin it like this. How deep does one go with Minnesota Vikings this weekend from a fantasy standpoint? And good morning.
I think you're starting all the usual suspects here, Paul. Obviously, it goes without saying Justin Jefferson, but I love TJ Hawkinson in this one. In the meeting 3 weeks ago with Chicago, they identified linebacker TJ Edwards as somebody they wanted to try to exploit in a coverage manner, and they threw at him constantly, and he just rolled over. He allowed 133 yards in his coverage alone in that game. TJ Edwards and Hawkinson, 114 yards in that game. And since then, the Bears gave up 2 touchdowns to Sam Laporta, and then last week, George Kittle rocked the Bears for 6 catches, 151 yards.
Damn.
So TJ Hawkinson, a repeat performance of 3 weeks ago, very possible for him in this one. And how do you not play Jordan Addison right now, Paul? Over the last 5 weeks, he's the 4th highest scoring wide receiver.
Wow.
I know. Jordan Addison.
That's the Jefferson coverage.
It is.
That's and not forcing it to 18, Jacksonville.
Yep.
Minimizing the forces to 18, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Eliminating the forces to 18, Chicago. And then from Arizona through Atlanta, now, as they would say in the business, everybody's beginning to eat.
So last time the Vikings played Chicago, Matt Eberflus was running that defense. Now it's defensive coordinator Eric Washington. So I'll be interested, Paul, to see especially how do they use Jalen Johnson differently. I felt like Eberflus dramatically underused Johnson, particularly in man coverage.
Yeah.
He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league.
He had a rough time in that Vikes game.
He did have a rough time in the Vikes game. and it was mostly in zone. I want to find out, are they going to let him play man more often? Yeah, I think he's the second highest paid cornerback in the league. Don't let him play man. Dude's awesome. Even if it's not Jefferson, do you go put Jalen Johnson on Jordan Addison and say, look, if we're going to put one player on Jordan Addison so we can double and triple Justin Jefferson in zone, fine. Then go make it Jalen Johnson and just commit the one player resource to Addison and let him hang with him that game, and that'd be an amazing duel. I would love to see how that works out.
And for the Bears, initially, I would imagine most would be like, hello, they're in transition, they're beleaguered, it's terrible. Keenan Allen, the last two against the Minnesota Vikings, 301 yards and a touchdown. All right, now, 2 touchdowns technically. One was throwing last year when he played for the Chargers.
Right.
But that last game, they could not get a hold of Keenan Allen. And then when they finally got a hold of Keenan Allen, then DJ Moore took off. So Bears, from a fantasy perspective, Mr. Charch.
Keenan Allen targeted 15 times in the Vikings game 3 weeks ago.
I think he caught 9.
I think that's right. The Vikings, presumably, we talked about this with Greenway a few minutes ago.
Yep.
Presumably you watch the tape and you go, well, let's not let that happen again.
Right.
But the Vikings have struggled with good slot receivers all season long. Ray McLeod last week, Paul.
Yeah.
8 catches, 98 yards.
And a lost fumble that was key.
That was key.
On
now,
that kick return.
Since the Bears switched to new offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, Allen is averaging 9 targets a game. To put, that is CeeDee Lamb level stuff. That is Jamar Chase level stuff at 9 targets a game.
Yeah.
So Keenan Allen, to me, is somebody that will be a factor in this game and somebody from a fantasy standpoint you could start. Here's the trickiest guy. It's Cole Kmet, who last week had no catches. Against the Vikings, he blew up. He had, I want to say...
85 yards, maybe?
Yeah, something in that ballpark.
No
85.
TDs, though.
Yep.
I don't think.
Over the last 4 years, here's Kmet against the Vikings. His average game is 6 targets, 4 catches, 42 yards. Vikings have not allowed a tight end score since way back in week 4. Kmet just such a big factor last week that I feel like he's somebody you might want to have on your radar. What do we know on Stephon Gilmore? Do we have a sense of whether or not he's going to be able to go?
Didn't practice yesterday.
That's
their practice begins in about 45 minutes. So you'll get those tweets from the scribes where they're like number counting and so and so's here, so and so's not here. Personally, I think they have the luxury of being overly cautious with him.
Sure.
Certainly in this game, but he's ended up being quite important in man-to-man defense. So, if it was like gun to the head type stuff, I'd say he's not going to play on Monday night, but they still have 2 practices today and tomorrow before Monday.
And that's a good point. We have an extra day built in there, which might ultimately help Stephon Gilmore a bit here. Fabian Moreau, not the liability last week that he was 2 weeks ago.
Kmet was targeted 10 times, 7 catches, 64 yards, 9 yards per reception in that game against the Vikings.
Yeah,
Damn,
holy
that's a
cow.
lot.
That is a lot. Lavelle's listening right now. Thank you for that, Lavelle.
10
Appreciate
targets.
That. Yeah, how about that? 10 targets for Cole Kmet.
Yeah, and 15 for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, and he had no targets last week or no catches last week. So he's always the hardest guy to figure out.
Yeah.
Bears might not have a running game in this one, Paul. Right now, DeAndre Swift has not practiced all week on a groin.
Yeah.
Roshan Johnson hasn't made it through the concussion protocol from like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
He still hasn't. See, I thought he'd be a cinch to play Monday night.
See, I did too, and maybe it'll still work that way with the extra day, but at this point,
that's why I think they signed the skeletal remains of Royce Freeman.
Did they really?
They just signed Royce Freeman this morning.
Oh God! By the way, I
former
love my
Bronco, right?
Yeah, former Bronco and former many
Giant or something.
That's Royce. Drop the piano, Freeman. Guy. We can only hope that he is the guy.
Signed him.
What is it? Travis Homer's. I think they're.
Yeah, Homer's practicing.
Yep, and he may very well be the starting running back against obviously what has predominantly been an elite level Vikings run defense, but without Ivan Pace has not been quite as good.
That's Paul Charchi, and I'm Paul Allen. We're feasting at Buffalo Wild Wings Roseville on KFAN.
It's a Purple Friday on the Fan, and we've got your chance to win tickets to see the Vikings. Caller number 11 will win a pair of tickets to see the Winter Whiteout game on Monday night against the Chicago Bears. Call 800-320-5326.
The name was referenced earlier, 9 to noon on the Friday Football Feast, former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, who coming off injury, and with the suddenly surging second-year quarterback Bryce Young. By the way, you sniffed that thing out about 3 weeks ago. He was okay, but it was stark contrast to the way he played before. And now Bryce Young's really coming through. So is Chuba Hubbard. Who knew? Chuba Hubbard. Holy cow, he's a reliable back.
Yeah.
But Adam Thielen, and what? Because you watch all the games, being the identity of fantasy football. With Adam Thielen, what are you seeing?
So he had that protracted hamstring injury, like 6 weeks. It was bad. They put him on IR, and he didn't even come off IR right away. Mm-hmm. He's been back 3 games. First game, they eased him back on a pretty small snap count.
Yep.
Then the next week, it was full go.
Yep, and he was doing the gritty.
And that week, he was doing the gritty. Yep. He was awesome in that game. He made 2 of the 10 best catches of the year in the same game. A falling away sideline catch, one-hander in overtime, and then he had the back of the end zone where he got the knee and the elbow down inbounds, but they didn't call it a touchdown, and I'm still bitter.
Yeah.
Then last week for Adam Thielen, 9 catches, 100 yards.
Damn.
I mean, that offense goes through Adam Thielen. Dave Canales has done an amazing job of turning that team around. If you look at what the Panthers have done, they if you go back 5 games ago, they won 2 in a row. And that's a big deal for the Panthers to win consecutive games. So
yeah.
They did that.
Huge.
Then they
almost beat Philly last week.
They almost beat Philly last week.
Yeah.
They had a tie game with the 12-1 Chiefs with 90 seconds to go.
Wow.
Almost won that. The Tampa game, they had won until Chuba fumbled deep in Tampa territory.
Wow.
So, I mean, they were in a position to win 2 in a row.
Who knew?
Beat the Chiefs, beat the Bucks, beat the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this Panther team is... Suddenly, it's all coming together. Adam Thielen's been a big part of that. They got all these young receivers, Xavier Legette,
yes.
right? It's all kids. Jonathan Coker, all kids. Then there's Adam Thielen, who's there to show the rest of those Panthers receivers what it's like to be a pro, how you get ready for a game, how you take care of your body, how you catch passes, how you get open, how you get separation. It's just, it's such a great spot. And for all of us that are Viking fans, just great to see Adam Thielen on the field making plays and being the player that he was for this organization for a decade.
Let me hit you with this off that game. Okay, brought it up a couple days ago with Nordo, who's with John Creasel in Maryland or D.C. for the Army-Navy game this weekend.
Yeah.
That's young Max Fuller's guiding the Great Ship Love Covenant, FM 100.3, KFAN, who. But that Carolina and Eagles game, you mentioned Xavier Legette, all right? Well, and you probably know this, the $3.1 million bet.
No.
Okay, somebody or a computer group or some group early in the week, so they got the best money line.
Right.
Okay, because the money line in this game finished Philadelphia at home. Money line, Minnesota means just win the game. Forget the point spread. Just, I'm going to bet this. I get this if this team wins and there are no points involved.
Can I guess?
Guess what?
What the money line was?
What it finished at? Go ahead.
Plus 900.
Well, no, Philadelphia was favored.
That's what I meant.
Oh, minus 900?
Would it be for Eagles to win plus 900? Right?
For the Eagles to win, it finished minus 900.
Okay, was it minus 900?
So a 9-1 favorite.
Right, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to go through and explain this to everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
But all right, 3-2. So on the other side, but when my man made the bet, okay, the person made the bet, $3.1 million on the Eagles on the money line, got it at minus 770 early. And so it's
a nice delta right there.
Whatever adds up, the chasm between 3.1 million and scooping like 420 grand.
Yeah.
So it's around minus 7 whatever. All you got to do is win the game. Okay, well, they're losing the game a fair amount.
Yes.
Thielen's on fire.
Yes.
Okay, Eagles grab the lead early fourth quarter. It's a grinder from there on. Bryce Young throws a deep one to Xavier Legette right near the end of the game.
In the end zone. At the strike.
Right in front of it. He might have rolled in.
Yep.
But timeout, stop, here with Juba. And so it was a tough catch, and he couldn't bring it in. Okay, and the Eagles won the game. First and foremost, you being an entrepreneur, it's not preferred. Correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm racetrack raised. It's not preferred putting up 3.1 million of your dollars to win 400 some odd thousand to somebody else's, right?
Generally, no.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of risk there.
I see what you're saying.
A lot of risk, but it's defensible depending on what the 3.1 million means to you.
Oh, good point. Yeah, excellent point. A fair point too. All right. Well, how you feeling? I mean, first and foremost, the Eagles are dysfunctional. Okay?
They are.
They can win 8 in a row and hate each other like they're doing this week with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and now you got Brandon Graham on WIP, and then, of course, Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb want people to remember them. Right. So what about me? Yeah. Let us talk about this. But so that team, with its coach, who has some emotionally unstable to him in the first place, I don't necessarily know if that's where I would drop that 3 point whatever to get 4.
Yeah.
He got the money. They got the money. End of the equation. That's all that matters. They're in the winner's circle, getting their picture taken, and everybody's cashing bets. So they got to the winner's circle.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if I don't have the capital to do it, and I'm not in the bookmaking business. Anybody wants to run your 3.1 to get my 4?
Yeah.
I mean, you better hit 20 in a row, because if you miss that third one, I'm done. I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm just taking your money.
Well, here's another way to look at risking 3.1 million to win 400 grand. Mm-hmm. If you put 3.1 million in the stock market, you're hoping that in 1 year you'll make about 400 grand.
Oh wow!
That would be that'd be a pretty good rate of return.
Yeah.
Somebody went, you know what? I'm going to try to do that on Sunday.
But you know what? You ain't going to lose the 3.1.
No, you're not all of it.
It may trickle a little slower than you thought.
Exactly.
But at least you get it back if you don't want to play the game anymore.
You really shouldn't lose all of it. That's for sure.
All right, one of our favorites, Courtney Cronin on the Chicago Bears, joins 9 to noon around the corner. You're listening to KFAN.